Hello, my name is David Stocker, and if you would, please lend me the next 5 minutes of your time to talk about net neutrality. We're going to talk about net neutrality, what it is, why you should care about it, why it's good for the economy, and why it's good for your pocketbook. But before we start, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. Sometimes you'll hear from opponents of net neutrality something along the lines that it's government regulation of the internet or it's restricting freedom on the internet. If somebody tells you this, you're either dealing with an idiot who doesn't understand how the internet works, or you're dealing with a liar. There is no third option. The opposite of net neutrality, it has a few different words. There's no really universally accepted term. My preferred term is shenanigans. So to begin describing what net neutrality is, perhaps we should compare it to a water company or a power company. When you use water, there's a little meter at your house. The power company has a similar meter. You pay for the amount of water you consume or the amount of electricity you consume. Neither the water company nor the power company can see what you're going to do with that water or with that electricity. That's because water molecules are immutable, electrons are immutable. There's no way for the power company or the water company to know what you're going to do with it. Are you going to wash your dog? Are you going to take a shower? Are you going to water the plants? As far as the water company is concerned, all of these things are the same. Use a little, pay a little. Use a lot, pay a lot. With net neutrality, your internet connection is exactly the same. Your provider can charge you based on how fat your pipe is and how fast data flows. They can charge you based on how much data you use. But there's no distinction between whether you use it to browse web pages or play games or stream movies. For companies who are running the servers on the internet, it's also the same way. Their internet bills tend to be a lot higher because they're pushing a lot of data from their servers, but in principle, it works exactly the way your private internet does. They pay for the amount of data that they push up or down and for the speed that their servers have for the internet. Your ISP may package your data into some sort of flat rate program, but that's really just marketing. Imagine a world where your water company could determine what you were going to do with that water, or your electric company could determine what you were going to do with those electrons. Perhaps filling a jacuzzi is worth more than washing your dog. Maybe you should pay a little extra for that. What do you think? Special package? Jacuzzis? I'm sure the water company's shareholders might think so. When you're using the internet, you're pushing data up and down in packets. Fun fact, they're actually called packets. That's the technical term. These packets have a from address, a to address, and some content in them. There's a key difference between electricity, water, and data packets, and that is data packets have an address on them. Your ISP can infer from this address what you're going to do with that data. If it's coming from Netflix or Amazon or iTunes, there's a very good chance that you're streaming some film or TV show. And that brings us to a key difference between ISPs and utilities like water companies and power companies. These packets do have addresses, and you can read those packets, and you can see where they're coming from and where they're going to. So it is conceivable that your ISP can tell more or less what you're doing with that packet. So now we get to what ISPs want and why the Senate is trying to push this Internet Freedom Bill. You see, it's not really about freedom on the internet. Well, maybe for your ISP it's freedom. It's the freedom to do a shakedown of customers and providers. The way the opposite of net neutrality is positioned It's positioned as a fast lane for the internet. But what it really is it's a slow lane for people who don't pay the shakedown price. So imagine you've created a small company and you're starting to get somewhere and you're gaining traction, and then one day a cable company on the West Coast comes to you and says, if you want access to their customers, yeah, okay, otherwise you ain't getting it. They'll throttle you and you'll go nice and slow. They might as well send some guy named Vinny over. Nice business you got here. And on the flip side of that, they can go to their customers and they can say, hey, that if you're using Netflix and you don't want to go slow, or how would they actually phrase it, if you want to have a fast lane as opposed to a trickle of data, they'll offer a fast lane package just for Netflix, which really means that they're slowing Netflix down unless you pay them an extra $5 or $10 a month. And it gets better. Most of these service providers, especially the cable companies, they're not neutral parties. They also sell their own content. And now we get to the final problem. Most of these companies, especially cable companies, are not neutral parties. They're not just selling internet access. They also sell content. Content has a higher profit margin. Would they rather use streamed videos on the net or subscribe to their TV channels? Streaming video services compete with the channels that they're selling you. Every streaming service that you subscribe to and use is potential revenue coming out of their pockets. Of course, their executive team and their shareholders would like to capture that revenue. And because of this, the executive team at your ISP and their shareholders have an interest in getting you away from your streaming service and onto their existing TV channels. And the way to do this is to do a shakedown of the service provider and the customer. So after they're done shaking down service providers and making you pay more for the same thing you had before, profits go up, their share price goes up, and the executive team goes to Hawaii. So tell your congressman and your senator that you want net neutrality. It's good for the internet, it's good for the economy, and it's good for your pocketbook. Thank you for watching. Please follow my YouTube channel, post this to your favorite social media platform, tweet it, retweet it, but most of all, thank you for watching.